My name is Phil Golding, and this is Creating Conscious Relationships. This episode is called An Invitation to Be Real. In this podcast, I will be giving you some more important skills for creating and deepening a meaningful and compassionate connection with your partner, family members, and anyone else you are trying to connect with, such as work colleagues. These skills help you to hear, receive, and understand one another better. These skills can be the difference between having an argument with someone or being about gaining deeper understanding and connection. So what do I mean by an invitation to be real? First, let's have a brief look at common mistakes we make that lead to disconnection. If I come to the communication with expectations, demands, and ready-made solutions, I am not going to create room for open sharing of vulnerable feelings and thoughts. I am more likely to project my own story onto the moment, onto you, and as a result, not learn what your experience is. Much of the time, I am just talking to an imaginary you that I have created in my own mind, rather than giving myself the opportunity of actually learning about what is really happening for you. I may approach the communication in this way because I'm afraid of not getting what I want. I'm trying to control you instead of entering into the process of genuinely communicating with you. So let's explore the foundations of a constructive approach to communication. Relationships break down when we fall into trying to control one another, which we are doing to avoid our own vulnerabilities. Feeling free and comfortable enough to be vulnerable with one another is the heart of relationship intimacy. It means we are accepting each other unconditionally to a high degree, which means we are making the relationship a sanctuary for one another. It is within this mutual sanctuary of acceptance that we feel safe to be open and vulnerable. We can only achieve and maintain this sanctuary of mutual acceptance by first accepting and fully owning our own human vulnerabilities, our own fears and insecurities, in other words. This also means accepting full responsibility for learning how to compassionately open our heart, our awareness, to our own vulnerabilities and process them like a loving parent looking after their own child. As an adult, our own mind is now our own child. We are the parent of our own mind. If we don't know how to parent and be there for ourselves, we won't learn how to create that sanctuary space for one another, which is where we feel accepted and free to be whoever we are in the moment, as well as being free to grow and change. This acceptance of our humanness and accepting personal responsibility for caring for our own fears and insecurities becomes the foundation of our own self-worth, self-esteem, and integrity that we can bring to the relationship. Making our partner responsible for our fears and insecurities inevitably leads to conflict and disconnection. Knowing how to be there for ourselves means we can then put more into the relationship than we take from it. When both people in the relationship are approaching it in this way, the relationship is taken to a whole new level. This is very important for sustainability in relationships. Of course, being our own aware parent is easier said than done, especially if our own childhood environment is not very supportive. This means you will still have a lot to learn about being that parent to yourself, which will be reflected in the struggles you are having in your relationships. It is here that accepting yourself unconditionally is so important. You did not bring yourself up. Your conditioning is not your fault, but as an adult, it is now your own responsibility. That is the position of every adult in this world. Therefore, to become a creator of conscious relationships today and every day becomes an opportunity to accept your right to be human, while seeing the opportunity in that day to learn something new about being your own loving parent. It is not about having to get it right. It is about having a go and keep having a go and learning from those experiences ongoing. It is essential to drop the idea of failure and instead let the outcomes of every day be an experience that you have the right and the opportunity to learn from. Understand that life and the people in your life may be triggering emotional reactions within you, but that is your opportunity to see and reach the wounded child within you, who is still needing love and mentoring, your love and mentoring. Blaming others for your emotional reactions will keep you stuck in your child mind. When you were a child, you had little control over your life. You did not have access to the adult potential of awareness that you have now. So much of your social conditioning was created when you were a child and continues to influence the ways you think and feel now, particularly when you are feeling vulnerable, which you are most likely to do within an intimate relationship, because there you are the most close and open to one another, and therefore the most vulnerable. This is what is behind your emotional reactions and the need to control rather than connect. Sometimes there are boundaries that we need to manage with others, but most of the time it is our own fears and insecurities that are being revealed to us. Know that there is a way to heal and mentor these fears and insecurities. Being aware and knowing how to heal and grow is not a mystery. This is well known today. The essential thing is to accept your right to be human, while at the same time be committed to learning how to take full ownership of your own mind as your own aware and loving parent. It is a matter of never giving up, no matter how many setbacks you may encounter. Let every relationship experience work for you. Be a student of life, and you will come to experience how every experience can help you to be more aware, heal more deeply, and grow. Acceptance of yourself and life circumstances and conditions, while learning to fully own your mind as your own loving parent, is the key to growing and empowering your awareness. To have a conscious relationship, we must learn how to let go of dependency and blame. It does not work to treat each other as our parent, so we don't have to deal with our own fears and insecurities. When we do that, we end up trying to conduct the relationship from the confused child conditioning, where we didn't know how to care for our own mind. As a result, we become emotionally dependent on one another, unconsciously holding each other responsible for shielding us from our own confusions that is causing our own fears and insecurities that in turn cause us to emotionally react and be controlling in fear-based ways. We then start to expect and depend on the other to not be human like us, which of course is impossible. This is how a child regards a parent. When we get caught in these sorts of expectations, we set ourselves up to be disappointed by our partner's inevitable humanness and become triggered into fight or flight reactions where we project blame and anger onto one another. Again, acceptance of our own humanness and the humanness of our partner, combined with our never give up commitment to learn how to fully own and parent our own mind, is the key to creating conscious relationships. An essential factor for creating conscious relationships is learning to hold the communication space for one another. From the awareness that we gain from learning how to face, open a heart to and process our own vulnerabilities, we come to see that communication isn't about projecting a set of assumptions, expectations and demands onto one another. It is instead a process of open interaction underpinned by mutual acceptance. There are times when we need to address something that isn't working in the relationship, but here we need to understand that two different people are entering into this communication space, who have different perceptions, needs, confusions, vulnerabilities, stories, personal histories, and so on. Therefore, communication needs to be a process that accepts and makes space for each person's thoughts and feelings, where they can be heard without interruption or judgment. Each person is going to be processing the same information differently. Something may be easy for you to understand and let go of, but your partner may have some complex trauma, for example, to work through that is being triggered by the dynamic that you are trying to work through. This makes their level of confusion much more dense than yours. It means they are going to take longer to work through it. When we expect our partner's process to be like our own, we can be prone to getting impatient and angry, assuming that our partner does not care about us. In fact, while working through the issue, which may take a few days or weeks or much longer, our partner may struggle to keep their heart open at times because of being challenged by the past emotional wounds that they are trying to work through. The more we understand how vulnerable our own humanness can be and how challenging it can be to work through our own issues, the more we can understand and hold the space of patience and acceptance for our partner when they are working through their own unique vulnerabilities. By holding a space of acceptance and compassion for our partner, we are giving them an invitation to be real. We can effectively do that for our partner when we can effectively do that for ourselves. In other words, through your own ongoing work to heal and grow in awareness, you become very familiar with your own fears and insecurities that are likely to cause you to react. You are learning to be real with yourself. Through your ongoing healing process, you can become far less reactive. And when you do react, you can pick the reaction up more quickly with your awareness, because your own vulnerabilities become very familiar to you. Instead of regarding your vulnerabilities as a problem that your limited ego tries to avoid in various ways, you now see them as an opportunity to reach that vulnerable child within you and be your own source of love and mentoring. You are learning to be present with your vulnerable self, with your heart open to those parts of yourself. This greater awareness and deeper healing, in turn, reveals to you how to hold that compassionate space for your partner, which makes it easier for them to be real with you. You are more able to accept their humanness, which can at times be irrational and emotional, but you will understand that this will not last, and you can hold the space for their vulnerabilities, giving them a chance to see what's happening for them and process their own vulnerabilities. Here you are creating a space that feels safe for them to do so, and creating such a space is far less likely to trigger their defensive reactions. So what is really happening when we emotionally shut down. Of course, a relationship is not going to work very well if we just keep blaming our fears and insecurities onto one another, or just keep avoiding them for that matter. Avoiding, for example, leads to emotionally shutting down and hiding behind protective walls. In reality, the mind, without knowing it, is just trying to protect itself from its own fears, insecurities, and resultant confusion. The limited survival part of the mind is trying to avoid being vulnerable in order to avoid having its own confusions triggered. The survival mind does not realize that it keeps carrying its old wounds into the present moment, while thinking that circumstances in the present moment are the cause of the emotional vulnerabilities. In reality, the circumstances of the present moment are just triggering what is already there. The mind is really trying to avoid itself by emotionally shutting down. This shutdown state can feel safe and comfortable for the one avoiding their emotional securities, but abandons the deeper connection to your partner, who may not be shut down and feels the ongoing pain of the disconnection. For the survival mind, avoiding the vulnerability is the priority. The survival mind has little awareness of what a truly heart-based connection is, and even less awareness of how to create it. Its only job is ensuring a limited form of survival, emotionally and physically. Only conscious awareness can create and maintain conscious relationships by aligning with acceptance and responsibility, whether that be a part of your conditioning or something that you have needed to consciously learn. Awareness is above the mind, within its own higher dimension. That's why, when truly aware, we can observe the mind from a higher perspective rather than be lost in the mind. Avoidance and shutting down for an extended period of time can also lead to relationship breakdown. The survival mind will even deny that it is shut down as part of the avoidance and get stressed and agitated when your partner tries to point it out and talk about it. When we are blaming or avoiding, we are not only abandoning our responsibility toward our relationship, we are abandoning our care for our own humanness. We are doing to ourselves what our unaware parents may have done to us as a child, due to their own confusion and shut down states of mind. So doing what we need to do to care for our own minds, including educating ourselves about self-care and reaching out for help when needed, is essential for caring for our relationship. So let's look more deeply into the invitation to be real. Another important factor to be aware of when wanting to address an issue with your partner is that you may have been thinking about this issue for some time, but when you address it with your partner, it may not be something that they have been thinking about. They may be preoccupied in a completely different headspace. It is going to take some time for them to adjust and be able to focus on what you have to say. This expectation that our partner be in the same headspace as us when we approach them is a very common area of misunderstanding in relationships and all communication situations. Therefore, an appropriate approach could be, I need to talk to you about what happened last night. Is now a good time, or is there a better time for you? To prepare for the communication, we first need to take responsibility for our own reactions and expectations that we are having around this issue. We then need to spend some time processing these vulnerabilities so we can enter into the communication more consciously. Let's say you are my partner and I am talking to you. An authentic way of communicating is to begin with a description of where I am in my process of sorting out my thoughts and feelings around a particular issue. Note the I statements where I am owning my own thoughts and feelings. I am avoiding drawing any conclusions about what is going on for you, because I can only know what is going on in my own mind, and even knowing that can be a challenge. Here's another example. When you said those things to me, I found myself reacting to it. I found I was left sad and angry, but I'm not sure why. Since thinking about it and trying to get in touch with my feelings, I have gained a little bit of insight, which I would like to share with you. I would also like to know what you were feeling at the time, because I'm still a bit confused. It is hard, of course, to be this eloquent in the moment. If you struggle to stay aware in the moment, it can be helpful to write it down first and have that with you when you say it. You can even read what you have written if you need to in order to get yourself past your old programming. Here you are accepting your humanness while trying to make a real effort to be conscious of how you are approaching that moment. It is always so important to emphasize that you are both human. Mutual acceptance means that you are not going to expect yourself or each other to communicate perfectly. Holding the space for each other is also about making space for each other's humanness. When doing this, you will each do your best to listen and try to understand each other without jumping to conclusions, as you each do your best to explore your own thoughts as you talk it out, not necessarily knowing what you want to say or how to say it. Communication is a process of patient, mindful interaction that eventually leads to some common ground. It can take time to learn more about this mindful approach to communication. Investigate the process called active listening and also nonviolent communication, or NVC. Don't be put off by the title of that one. It is actually teaching you positive and compassionate communication skills. Investigate the process called active listening and also nonviolent communication, or NVC. You can also check out my previous communication skills podcasts if you haven't already done so. This genuine description of where you are in the moment leaves the space open for further communication. You have done your best to not revert to blaming. Rather, you have chosen to parent your own emotions by connecting to and caring for your own vulnerable human self. Some of this negative energy is still bound to remain, and you may still feel victimized at one level or another, but you are willing to give your partner the benefit of the doubt. You are willing to consider that there is generally more to an issue than is reflected in your emotional reactions. Your willingness to approach your partner in this way demonstrates how you would like your partner to come to you when you unwittingly say something insensitive or accidentally push that big red button labelled rejection complex, for example. A complex is another name given to an unconscious thought pattern or program or conditioning, all the same thing, that distorts the mind's ability to perceive accurately. When you fully own what you think, therefore feel, say and do, with unconditional self-acceptance, you can bring into awareness and heal such emotional reactions through this process of developing conscious awareness and mindful communication. In this way, it is more comfortable for each person in the relationship to feel safe and be open and vulnerable, to be real, in other words. The defensive walls dissolve away, and real intimacy, a real heartfelt connection, is the result. Here is another example of mindful communication. Again, let's assume we are in a relationship. I have been thinking about an issue I have had in our relationship for some time. I would like to sit down with you and tell you about it. I need some things to change in our relationship, but I want to give you a chance to understand my needs and then have a think about it. Here you are letting your partner know that you have an issue, that you want to make a time to talk about it, and also that you are prepared to give your partner time to think about it. As I have pointed out, some issues are too big or complex to sort out in one go. Being willing to work through the issue in stages over a period of time is very important. It is acknowledging that both parties need to spend time processing the issue in their own way. It is also important for you to consider that your partner may have some important input on the matter that you may not have considered. When approached in this way, you are more likely to feel respected and in control of your own process. Both yourself and your partner will have a better chance of discussing the issue in an open and loving manner. Our fear-driven egos that want it all to be black and white and resolved straight away tend to fall into blaming, demanding and accusing. While we are still human beings, wherever we go, so does our fear-based ego, and so does our mind with all its conditioned confusions, like a confused and emotionally wounded child that is ours to look after. Therefore, we are always going to be struggling to some degree with our own self to find appropriate and effective ways to communicate in the moment. With any healthy relationship, this is understood and accepted. Perfection is not expected. Some initial confusion, negative emotion, and miscommunication is seen as an inevitable consequence of being human. We are each responsible for doing our best to be aware of our own reactions and regain mindfulness as soon as we can, being committed to owning our own mind and learning from our emotional reactions and mistakes builds trust in the relationship. Even though you may react in the moment, I can feel safe to give you space, knowing that you will see that reaction as an opportunity to heal, learn and grow. This is the key to integrity. For a relationship to work and be conscious, it is important that both parties in the relationship are committed to this level of personal responsibility. When a time to communicate about an important issue is mutually arranged, all concerned are more able to approach the communication in a constructive way, providing we're each committed to taking ownership of our own minds and doing our best to process our own fears and insecurities instead of falling into holding each other responsible for our vulnerabilities. With this approach, we can each have time to more consciously prepare and take care of our respective vulnerabilities. We will each feel more in control and empowered. Using this open and patient approach described here will better ensure that potential conflict is appropriately managed, avoiding the prospect of ongoing disconnection and emotional wounding. Your relationship can be an opportunity to become more aware of past emotional wounds and heal them, rather than project them onto one another and therefore create more pain, suffering and confusion. Instead of conflict and disconnection, you can create and maintain harmony and connection. So here are some podcasts that will help you become the loving parent, healer, and mentor of your mind. Start with my 5 Steps to Freedom podcast series, episodes 1, 4 and 6. I also recommend my Real Healing, Real Awakening podcast series. To learn how to heal specific issues such as trauma, depression, stress and anxiety, go to my Quest for Healing podcast series. Of course, all my podcasts are about learning self-awareness. Learning how to take care of your own mind is an essential part of the process of learning to take care of your relationships. Be a creator of loving, compassionate, and conscious relationships.